We call them ghost towns, but the real ghosts aren't spirits, they're structural scars. I look at these ruins and see a civilization that built too fast and died too young. As an architect, I don't just see decay, I see the secrets hidden in the joints and foundations. Why do some structures survive a century of neglect, while modern builds crumble?
I'm David J. Architect, and for years I've studied the physics of how things stand up and why they fall. Today, we're crossing the American West to solve 10 architectural mysteries. We're moving beyond history books into the engineering of desperation. We're exploring impossible cities, structures that, by all laws of construction, probably shouldn't have stood at all.
Bodie is frozen in time, but it was built as a literal tinderbox. As an architect, the layout terrifies me. You have thousands of wooden structures packed tightly to withstand 100-mile-per-hour Sierra winds, creating a high-density fuel load. The mystery here isn't just the ghosts, it's the fire-responsive design. Miners used heavy iron shutters and double-thick brick firewalls on the few masonry buildings to protect their gold from the inevitable infernos. When you walk these streets, look at the spacing between the buildings. It wasn't about neighborliness. It was a desperate attempt to create fire breaks in a town built of pine and kerosene. Bodie survived because of a few strategic architectural choices that stopped the 1932 fire from consuming the entire legacy. Deep in Alaska rises a 14-story copper mill, a crimson giant rotting beautifully against a moving glacier. This is a miracle of timber tolerances. The mill was built for a short-term venture, not preservation, yet it stands nearly a century after abandonment. From a construction standpoint, the logistics are baffling. They built a 196-mile railroad through a glacial wilderness just to haul the copper out. The mill's foundation is anchored into a hillside that is essentially a rock glacier, meaning the earth beneath it is constantly shifting. How did these timber joints handle the vibration of massive ore crushers while the ground moved? The secret lies in the gravity-fed design. The building uses its own massive vertical weight to stabilize the structural frame against the Alaskan elements. Rhyolite is a mystery of material logistics. When timber is too expensive to ship across the desert, an architect has to get creative. Tom Kelly built a house out of 50,000 glass beer and medicine bottles. To a structural engineer, this is a nightmare of compressive strength versus brittleness. He used a primitive mortar to bind the glass, creating a wall that is essentially a translucent masonry unit. But why glass? It wasn't an artistic statement, it was frontier engineering. Glass is a remarkable insulator against Nevada's extreme thermal swings. While the wooden boomtown shacks were warping and splitting in the heat, the bottle house used air pockets inside the glass to create a thermal barrier that kept the interior habitable. It was a stroke of desperate genius.
Building in these environments was an act of pure defiance. There were no standard codes, no inspections, only the frontier engineering mindset. They were building for the moment, but the physics of their materials forced them to innovate in ways we are still trying to understand today.
St. Elmo is famous for the clean exit, the mystery of why residents simply left their belongings behind. From an architectural perspective, the town's preservation is a lesson in thermal mass. The general store and residences are built with dense, old-growth timber that has seasoned in the dry, high-altitude air. This wood becomes nearly as hard as stone, resisting the rot that usually claims abandoned towns. The layout follows a telegraphic, linear design, everything built along a single main artery for maximum efficiency in snow removal. The buildings were placed to capture the southern sun, creating a natural heating effect that allowed people to survive winters where temperatures dropped to 30 below. Their architecture was their silent telegraph of survival. Founded in 1873, Animas Forks sits at 11,200 feet. The architectural mystery here is vertical logistics. How do you get Victorian bay windows and heavy mining equipment up a cliffside with no modern roads? You use sectional construction. Many of these buildings were designed to be disassembled and hauled by mule. If you look at the Walsh House, you see high-style Victorian architecture adapted for the tundra. The bay window wasn't just for the view, it was a solar collector. By maximizing glass surface area in a southern orientation, the architects used passive solar gain to heat the home. At 11,000 feet, your building isn't just a shelter, it's a life support system designed to harvest every watt of sunlight. Garnet was designed to keep people together and secrets hidden. The town's architecture is defined by narrow alleys and shared walls, what we call continuous frontage. In a remote mountain gulch, building houses that shared a common wall wasn't about saving space, it was about structural bracing. Each house helped hold up the next against the massive snow loads of the Montana winters. This social architecture created a forced community. The miners lived in cribs and hotels where the walls were paper thin, meaning everyone knew everyone else's business. In Garnet, the construction didn't just provide shelter, it dictated the social hierarchy, with the mine owners' homes on the high ground looking down on the shared wall chaos of the workers below. Calico didn't just exist on the surface. The real mystery is the miles of structural tunnels beneath the floorboards. As a silver town in the Mojave, Calico's subterranean engineering is a masterpiece of cooling. The miners realized early on that the surface temperature was unsustainable, so they integrated their living spaces with the mine adits. They used adobe on the surface, mud bricks that provided incredible thermal lag, but the structures were often anchored directly into the rock. This created a labyrinth where the architecture of the home and the architecture of the mine were one and the same. When you walk through Calico today, you're only seeing half the town. The other half is a ventilated, stone-carved city that kept the population alive in 120-degree heat.
We see human nature in these layouts, the arrogance of believing a boomtown would last forever. They ignored environmental warnings, believing that if the gold was there, the buildings would follow. They were designing for wealth, not for note or the desert.
South Pass City sits on harsh, wind-swept terrain where the earth literally shifts beneath your feet. As an architect, I look at their log notching techniques. They used a specific dovetail or V-notch joint that locked the logs together. This wasn't just for aesthetics, it was a seismic gamble. These joints allow the building to flex during ground shifts or extreme wind gusts without the walls parallelogramming and collapsing. While modern rigid frames might crack under Wyoming's punishing ground shifts, these flexible log boxes survived. They are essentially unreinforced masonry that uses gravity and friction as its primary fasteners. It's a primitive but effective solution. Shaniko is home to a massive brick structure in the middle of nowhere, the Columbia Southern Hotel. In a region dominated by wood, brick is an anomaly. The mystery is how this brick-and-mortar giant became a ghost in less than a decade. Brick represents permanence, an investment that says, we are staying here forever. But bricks require local clay and massive amounts of fuel to fire or expensive rail transport. The hotel's existence proved Shaniko had reached a level of industrial maturity. It used masonry-bearing walls that were feet thick to support its weight. But permanence is an illusion in the West. When the railroad bypassed the town, the very brick walls that were meant to signal a legacy became a tombstone for a city that died of obsolescence. The darkest mystery of Bannock is found in the architecture of justice. We look at the town's infamous gallows, the first thing built and the last thing left standing. To an architect, the gallows are a study in point loading and impact force. They were built with massive 10 by 10 timbers, engineered to withstand a sudden, violent drop. It's a chilling contrast. The town's jail was often a flimsy wooden shack, but the gallows were built with the structural integrity of a cathedral. It shows that in the Old West, the infrastructure of punishment was more important than the infrastructure of habitation. The joists of the gallows are still sound today, a haunting reminder that we build our most durable structures for the things we fear the most.
We build for forever, but the desert and the mountains always have other plans. As an architect, these ghost towns are more than just ruins. They are a masterclass in frontier engineering and human resilience. They remind us that the structures we leave behind tell the true story of our nature, our greed, our desperation, and our incredible ability to innovate under pressure. If you want to see how this impossible engineering translates to the modern world, click the link to my next deep dive on modern structures that shouldn't stand. Don't forget to subscribe to the Curiosity Lab for more architectural mysteries.